I was 20 at the time when this happened. I still remember this as a vivid memory in my brain that would never get erased. One day, I was at a club with a few friends. I saw a cute girl which was totally my type at first glance. She had blonde hair and deep brown eyes. Her nose was tiny and cute. Her lips were red like a rose. I approached her and I asked if she wanted a drink or something. She said yeah, and we drank a lot. She told me to come by her place. I hesitated at first, but soon I agreed. I told my friends that I was leaving early, and we booked a cab. We got in the cab, and 15 minutes later, we arrived at her house. Her apartment had a 2-floor. Nothing special, but just normal. We stepped inside, and all of a sudden, I smelled something rotten. I got a bit nauseous and asked her if I could use the bathroom. She smiled and said yes. I rushed in, and as I did, the smell got stronger. That's where the smell was coming from. At first, I didn't pay attention and puked into the sink. I thought that I had drunk a bit too much, but it was not. Just then, I heard a splash of water right beside the bathtub. I turned and opened the shower curtain, and then what I saw made my heart drop. A dead body of a boy around my age, mutilated, was lying in the bathtub obliquely. As I got closer, I realized that his right leg was cut off too. I was freaked out. I wanted to scream, but it didn't come out. But I decided not to go outside because she might be a psychopath killer and could kill me too. I tried to find an escape. Then I spotted something that I wasn't expecting. A small pocket knife stuck out from his jean pocket. I cautiously took the knife and flicked the door open. There was no one outside, and only that girl was sitting on the steps. I asked her what was in the bathtub, and suddenly, her expression got different. She flashed a maniac grin, and then she took out something from her back, a knife. All of a sudden, she lunged toward me, but I dodged it. I took out my knife and swung around as soon as she came to me and kicked her. She let out a scream as she fell to the ground. I heard some noise upstairs, but I wasn't going to check that out. I sprinted out the door and ran 2 blocks straight without stopping, and then called the cops. The cops searched the whole house and arrested 3 people, all charged for murdering innocent young boys. Then I took a cab back to my house. I called and told my parents about this incident. I wasn't able to sleep that night at all. This was the scariest I've ever experienced. And who knew what would have happened if I didn't find that knife?
My mom used to work as a taxi driver, and she started to go out with one of her coworkers. Let's call him Larry for the sake of the story. He seemed like a nice guy at first. Finally, they got married and had a daughter, and we will call her Ruby. But once they got married, things started to change immediately. He was not a nice guy after all. If something didn't go his way, he always ran to his mom's house. Because in her mind, he was still her baby, even though he was a 50-year-old man. He was such a mama's boy. Mom and Larry would break up and make up a lot, so that was just normal behavior. But when he got drunk, sometimes we didn't let him inside the house as he can become a violent person. He'd break in by smashing a window to get in on occasion. Well, he would not hurt us, but broke things like a TV or a family member's computer, which made us terrified. The final straw was when he came into our house one day. He kidnapped Ruby and ran away for 2 days until the police arrested him and brought Ruby back home, even though Larry was her dad. Mom was literally traumatized by this incident. We decided to move out of our house, and it was a great idea to move away from him at a safe distance. We had none of his belongings, so he had no reason to come crawling back to us. So we moved out, and as time went by, we settled into the new house. We all started school, and I always woke up extra early to shower and play video games before I went to school. But this one day, when I woke up at 4 a.m. and finished taking a shower, I came out of the bathroom and looked out of the window unintentionally. It was still dark, and there was a man who was walking up and down the path by the side of our house. Suddenly, he looked up and stared at me. He realized that I saw him. I stood there and did nothing. Then he walked away and stood under the streetlight. It was Larry. He had the most malevolent smile I've ever seen. He came over to the mailbox saying that he was sorry. He said that he wanted to talk to my mom so they could start over again. I ran to Mom and woke her up, but we decided to call the police instead of letting him inside. About 10 minutes later, the police came to arrest him. They found out that he drove a car while drunk and left it halfway up the road. And when they searched him, he had a surgical scalpel in his pocket. He told the police that it was just a joke, but no